Hello and welcome. I'm John Defterius, and this is World Business, your weekly insight into the global business trends shaping our lives. Think of coal and you'll perhaps picture a dirty, inefficient power source, an old-fashioned fossil fuel with little relevance in today's high-tech world. In fact, coal remains the largest single source of electrical power in the world, generating 40% of our electricity. And because of massive demand from places like China, its usage is projected to rise, not fall. But thanks to new technology, more coal doesn't necessarily mean more emissions.
It's thought that there's enough coal to power the entire planet for almost 200 years. The question is, of course, would we want to, given the fact that coal is one of the most carbon-intensive fuels around, producing more carbon per kilo than any of the other fossil fuels, and certainly more than renewables or nuclear.
It's easy to see how coal gained its reputation of being one of the more dirty fuels. Coal-fired power stations are also some of the oldest in existence. This one was built in the 1960s. But though its days are numbered, a new, cleaner plant is going to be built in its place.
EU legislation has forced these older plants to clean up or close down by 2016. And rather than retrofit this old plant, its German-based parent company E.ON has applied for planning permission to build a new plant using some of the latest and cleanest technology.
What we're proposing to do now is replace the existing units with brand new, cleaner coal units. It's going to see technology that's going to produce electricity from coal far more cleanly and far more efficiently than has ever been seen before in the UK.
The plant, due to be up and running by 2012, would use what's called supercritical technology to increase the amount of energy gained from each tonne of coal and to reduce emissions by almost 2 million tonnes a year. If built, it would be the UK's first new coal-fired power station for 30 years, and probably wouldn't be the last. Rival power company Centrica is also planning on building one, its first foray into coal. For Centrica, which specialises in gas, one of the attractions of coal is diversity of supply.
Being totally reliant on gas in periods like this where gas prices, which are linked to oil, have spiked fairly high, it becomes a less economic form of generation at the margin. The other driver is not only the fuel cost, but it's the cost of emissions. And right now the signal is that beyond 2012, there will be a significant value on reducing carbon emissions.
Centrica and other European power companies such as RWE have chosen a different type of technology called integrated gasification combined cycle, where coal is not combusted directly but reacts with oxygen and steam to form a synthetic gas. The carbon dioxide is removed in the process and stored, so emissions using this technology are virtually zero. The International Energy Agency admits, however, that when it comes to clean coal, technology is almost the easy part.
We have the engineering skills, we have the know-how, we already know how we're going to do it. We've just got to get over a few hurdles, as it were. But at the same time, we need the enabling framework to encourage utilities and others to build these new types of stations. And at the moment, there's no incentives, there's no penalties, there's no regulatory framework in place.
Many of the proposed clean coal plants aren't due to come into operation until after 2012, by which time the Kyoto Protocol has run out. With an 800 megawatt plant costing around $2 billion to build, for Centrica 3 times the cost of a similar-sized gas-fired plant, the future of clean coal depends on the future cost of carbon.
We'll only move forward if the plant is economically viable. And to be economically viable, we need some certainty around the emissions trading scheme. We need to know that there will be a value above the current value for carbon going forward.
But while international governments debate the pros and cons of a global carbon market, China is building a new coal power plant just about every week. And cascading clean coal technology from the west to the east has an additional problem. Investments into energy-efficient technologies by carbon trading companies such as Eco-Securities require UN approval in order to qualify for carbon credits.
Clean coal for us in terms of investing in developing countries is difficult because as yet there are no clean coal approved methodologies under the UN. It's to do with the uncertainty as to whether the CO2 can be permanently sequestered in the geological strata into which they're being inserted.
To help speed up the process of approval, a number of pilot projects have been commissioned around the world, including this $50 million plant developed by Stockholm-based Vattenfall, testing another kind of technology called oxyfuel. With the pilot projects in place, the IEA is confident clean coal will prove it's worth the investment.
It's not a ridiculous increase, and if these technologies come in over time, then we should be able to bear it. And if we start now, then the consequences to our lifestyle are pretty minimal. If we leave it for 30 or 40 years and then have a panic, then it's going to cause a major problem.
Though many will never change their minds about coal, believing that all resources should be put into developing renewable energy and not into cleaning up fossil fuels, there's no denying that coal is firmly back on the agenda. But whether it arrives in time to prevent global emissions from reaching critical levels is still very much up in the air.
Of course, coal isn't just for electricity. It can be converted to liquid fuels and chemical products like fertilizers, and could also kickstart the shift to hydrogen-powered vehicles.